All right, 8th grade, Unit 7, Lesson 3. The warm-up is really 2 pages. So we're going to start 1 page at a time. Go ahead and do the first page. Make sure that you really and truly name each angle relationship first, and then identify which diagram where they're supplementary. So I want you to get in the habit of not just finding the right answer, but actually labeling everything. And then for number 2, it might be worth your while to actually draw a picture. And then number 3 is a blast from the past. So go ahead and turn off the video. Go ahead and do page 27 and then turn the video back on. Okay, welcome back. First of all, these 2 angles right here are vertical. Everyone should have written vertical. And then we know vertical angles are congruent. These angles over here are like twins, so they're corresponding. Everybody should know that word, corresponding, which means they're also congruent. These 2 angles right here make a corner, and we know that if it makes a corner, then they're going to be complementary. And we know that complementary angles equal 90 degrees. And lastly, these 2 angles right here make a straight line, and because they make a straight line, we know that they are supplementary, which means they equal 180 degrees. So the question is, which ones are supplementary? So everybody should have all of this work on their paper, and the correct answer is D. Number 2, you've got 2 angles that are vertical angles, and the measure of one of them is 60 degrees. And what you need to know here is with vertical angles, the angles are congruent. And so if one of them is 60 degrees, then the other one has to be 60 degrees. The lettering here for the angles is kind of strange. Okay, number 3, we know that 1 over 25 is the same thing as 5 to the negative 2nd power, or 1 over 5 squared. And everyone should go back and they should use their properties here. The base, put both exponents. You're multiplying, so you're adding here. This one right here, the base, put both exponents, and you're multiplying, so you add. This one here, the base is 5, the exponents are 3. You know that this exponent is 1. You add. And the last one, your exponents are 2 and 4, and you add. And this is all true, 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 true. They want to know which one is not equivalent, so you've all chosen D. All right, turn the page. They say it's a bonus problem, but you know me, you need to actually do these problems. Go ahead and do both problems, and then once you finish both problems, go ahead and turn back on the video. So turn off the video. Do not wimp out here. Actually, really and truly, do both problems and then turn back on the video. All right. Hopefully you did a good job and you didn't give up on yourself here. All right, let's start up here. This is a right angle, 90 degrees. We know all of these are 90 degrees then. Let's go for all of our vertical angles. Vertical angles. That's probably the easiest. Now let's go for our supplementary angles. 50 and 130 makes 180 degrees. 180, 100 plus 80 equals 180 degrees. So far, so good. Next thing we do is we look here at this figure. That figure right there is a quadrilateral. We could make it into 2 triangles, 180 degrees on this side, 180 degrees on this side. So all 4 of these corners right here have to equal 360 degrees. So we have 90 degrees, we have 50 degrees, we have 100 degrees. So far we have 240 degrees. The quadrilateral has a total of 360 degrees. So that leaves us with 120 degrees for this other corner. And then when we use what we know over here, this is 120 degrees. The vertical angle is 120 degrees. Supplementary, 60 and 120 makes 180 and 60. That wasn't so hard. Okay, in case you didn't do every problem on this page, turn off the video, do the last problem on page 28, and then come back to the video. All right, welcome back. Here we go. 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Let's go now to here. 50 degrees, 50 degrees. Supplementary would be 130 degrees, 130 degrees. So far, so good. All right, let me choose another another color. 120 there, 120 here, 60 and 60. That doesn't look like a 60, but make it a 60. All right, this is a triangle. So that would mean that these three angles have to equal 180 degrees. So we have 60 degrees, 50 degrees, which is 110 degrees, and 180 minus 110 leaves us with 70 degrees for this corner right here. Make this a little bit bigger. Let me erase this just a little bit, put that in here. All right, so far so good. Now we go over to, let's do this one. We go over here. Here's our quadrilateral. The quadrilateral gets divided into two triangles, 180 degrees here, 180 degrees here. That means all of our outside angles, all four of those, have to equal 180 degrees. So we have 120 degrees, 90 degrees, 130 degrees that we know about. Let me check my math, make sure that that's right. And then it's 360 degrees altogether, 240 degrees we know of. So that leaves us with 120 degrees for that corner right there. Oh, no, it doesn't. Hold on. This, I made a mistake. So let me erase what I made a mistake on. Right here. Can't add. All right, so let's go back here. Let's add this more carefully. That's 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, 14. Carry the 1, 340 degrees. 360 degrees minus 340 degrees leaves us with 20 degrees for this corner. And once we know that corner, we know everything else. 20 degrees because these are vertical. 160 degrees because these are supplementary, and then 160 degrees. So take a look at that. Kind of sloppy there, but take a look at that and see if you got all those measurements. Oh my goodness. I just noticed that I missed a few. So, let's see, I'm correcting my work here. This is 70, this is 110, and 110. I guess technically if we're putting all of the measurements on there, we should have those. Let me check the rest. Okay, those were my mistakes. So hopefully that helps you out. All right. Hopefully you can get that on your own as well. All right, let's go to page 29. Today we're going to use what we know and we're going to work on the next step. So our aim for today is to become fluent working with transversals. So let's write our aim: to become fluent We all know that if you're fluent, you go pretty fast and you don't make mistakes. And of course, I want you not to make any mistakes. I want it to be accurate first and then fast. So to become fluent working with transversals. You have a whole lot of new vocabulary, and so you need to make sure that you know the vocabulary. All right. It says, consider the parallel lines being cut by the transversal. I'm hoping that every single one of you knows that these are your parallel lines and that this right here is your transversal. If you don't know that, go over that a couple times. Make sure you know that terminology. All right, so what we have to do here is well, we'll just follow their guidelines here. What kind of angle relationships do the two labeled angles have? So we've got this angle right here and this angle right here. We have to know what that's called. So think about it. And those would be corresponding. Those are like the twins. Those are corresponding angles and they're congruent to each other. If this up here is 70 degrees, this right here is 70 degrees. They're congruent. We use the information that they're congruent, and that gives us our equation. The top angle, the 7x plus 6, is exactly the same measure as the bottom angle, which is 6x plus 14. So all we have to do is solve our equation here. And that tells us our value of x. So we're using the definition of corresponding angles. They're the twin angles. If you cut this first angle up here, change the color. If you cut this first angle right here and then you moved it, it would lay right on top of this angle right here. You could do that with wax paper. Trace over the first angle. It's going to be exactly the same size as that other angle. They're corresponding angles and they're congruent. We use that information to write our equation, and then of course we just solve. All right, I'd normally ask if you have questions, but we're going to move on. All right, this one is just a little bit trickier. We still have our parallel lines and we still have them cut by a transversal. But here we don't have alternate. They're not on opposite sides of the transversal. So they aren't corresponding. So we have to think about this. This is like a two-step problem. This is what we know. We know that this angle and this angle are corresponding angles. So if this angle up here, color code it for you here, if this angle right here is 132, then this angle down here is 132. Think about that for a minute. Those two blue angles are corresponding angles. They have the same measure. Now we have information that we can use. We know that this angle plus this angle make a straight line. And if they make a straight line, those two angles are supplementary. So what kind of angle relationships do the two labeled angles have? They're supplementary. They make that straight line. And we know that supplementary angles equal 180 degrees because we've written that several times. We use that information now to write our equation. We know, and I'm going to color code this now again too, we know that this angle up here plus this angle down here has to equal 180 degrees. So the x plus 58 plus the 132, those two angles, have to equal the straight line, have to equal 180 degrees. Then we just do our math. Looks strange at first because you're like, wait a minute here, it's going to be a negative. Well, an angle can't have a negative measurement, but the x certainly can be a negative number. So the x is equal to a negative 10, and that's all they're asking for is the value of x. This one's a little tricky. You can write tricky here, but it comes back again and again. So let's just make sure that we know what we did here. Sometimes this doesn't erase the whole entire thing at the beginning. What we did here is we said that this angle and this angle are corresponding. So if that top angle is 132, the bottom angle is 132. And then what we did was we looked and we said, okay, that's great. Now we looked here, this is a straight angle. So these two angles right here are supplementary and they equal 180 degrees. So that's that. Alrighty, so now technically you're supposed to work on your own, but I'm going to give you a little direction before I send you on your own. It says to use this first diagram, they're telling you now that L and K are parallel. They trick you a little bit because now the parallel lines are going vertically instead of horizontally, but that's okay. Those are still your parallel lines. This is still your transversal. So everything still applies. You're just looking at it differently. Instead of being horizontal, it's vertical. So they want to know which pair of angles are corresponding. So the first thing you're going to do, of course, is you're going to identify the relationship. So you have angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2 make a straight line. So you're going to write what kind of angles they are and that they equal 180 degrees. You're going to go to the next angles, angle 2 and angle 5. Angle 2 and angle 5 are that tricky thing that we just did, where we said, okay, well, we can move this 5 right here and put it down here because that would be corresponding. And then we would look at these two angles and they're supplementary. And then 1 and 3. I'm going to erase up here because it's kind of getting a mess. Okay, and so now we want to go 1 and 3. Oh, easy peasy. 1 and 3 are vertical, and they're congruent to each other. And then lastly, we have 3 and 7. 3 and 7. And 3 and 7 are ones that are corresponding. If you were to trace them and move them, they'd be on top of each other. So these are corresponding. And because they're corresponding, they also are congruent. So the question is, which pair of angles are corresponding angles? You do all that work, and then you go ahead and choose answer option D. I want you to do the same thing for the whole entire rest of that page. Do not get sloppy. Do not get lazy just because I'm not there to watch you. All right, move on. On the next page, page 31, for each problem, state what kind of angle relationship the labeled angles have, and then solve for x. So first you're going to look, and you're going to say, I know. Those are, write it. And then what do we know about vertical angles? Yep. And then you write your equation. Well, the two angle measurements are the same. And then you're going to solve and find x. Go back on your notes and like alternate exteriors, look for them. Look at your notes, make sure that you can label all of those types of angle relationships. Let's see. Trying to see what you'd have trouble with. Be very careful when you do silver round 2. Use what you know. I think you're going to be fine. This one right here, everybody's on page 33 now. 33, I just want to give you a little bit of a hint here. Remember, this is parallel to this. See those orange lines? They're parallel to each other. And see these pink lines? They're parallel to each other. So you have to use all that information right there to figure out what they're asking for. So look at it that way. We'll probably go over the gold before you actually correct it. And let's see, so then that would mean, of course, this would be the same kind of idea. Those would be parallel. And then these would be parallel. So that's my hint for the gold problems. Love this gold problem right here. This is a true gold problem. Absolutely a gold problem. And do the best that you can. I'd be really curious as to who gets this answer. That might be my question, my quiz question. I want to know what the measure of angle A is. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Use what you know. Redraw the picture down here. Enhance the picture down here. And see what you can do. If you get frustrated, you still go on, and everybody does page 35. We always identify the type of angles that there are. Now let's see here. Opposite sides of the transversal. Inside the parallel lines. And they're congruent. That's how we start that problem. I'm going to erase it because you don't need to copy it. Okay. Good luck, do your work, and we'll see you tomorrow with the answers. Well, I won't see you, but you'll hear about me.